Today, we become legends.
The Glyph system was introduced to Smite at the start of Season 9, and since then has undergone quite a few changes to make it feel better, such as only allowing one glyph per player and adding several new glyphs to the pool. However, I do feel the system can still be improved upon, so here's my idea for a soft rework of the glyph system. Also, a quick shout out to Inbound, who recently put out a video discussing glyph design, which put me onto this topic in the first place. Go check out his video if you're interested, link below. So on launch, any god could build as many glyphs as they wanted. This has since been changed, but wasn't as stupid as you might think, since at launch there was only 5 items with glyphs and each one was designed for a certain role. So sometimes it might be good to get 2 glyphs, but for example, it's not worth going Heart Ward Amulet on a jungler just so that you can have Jotuns and Heart Ward glyphs at the same time. It just wasn't good. However, as more glyphs were added, it only made sense to limit players to 1 glyph. Since then, a few more glyphs have been added, such as to Magi's, Relic Dagger and Pribwin, and we're at a point now where there are often multiple glyph options you want in your build. Solo laners feel this especially, as Pribwin glyphs are so strong that it kinda feels bad to buy any other glyph like Runeforged, Breastplate, even Amulet of the Stronghold, which was previously really strong for solo laners, is just outclassed by Pribwin a lot of the time. So my first and most major change to the glyph system would be to introduce major and minor glyphs. Major glyphs will be more expensive, 800 gold is what I came up with, and would be generally the kind of game-changing glyphs, while minor glyphs will be cheaper, let's say 400 gold, and consist of ones that more so just provide a small added benefit and are less powerful. You then allow players to buy 1 major and 1 minor glyph at once. This solves a lot of the balance issues that glyphs have right now, as it very often feels like there's really one best option for your glyph, and half the options that exist are never picked up because they're simply worse than something like Pribwin. With a major and minor glyph system, you can buff and nerf certain glyphs in accordance with their tier and get a more fine balance point. You also have the option of moving less used major glyphs down to the minor section where they might see more play, and likewise move a minor glyph that seems a bit too strong and is pushing everything else out up to the major section where it has more fierce competition. I feel like this would solve the biggest issue with glyphs right now, which is that they're supposed to promote build diversity, but most of them just get left on the sidelines with a very small handful of glyphs that dominate the meta, which definitely hurts build diversity instead of helping it. In this new system, you have access to 1 very powerful game-changing glyph and 1 less powerful additional glyph, which allows you to experiment a lot more with some of the less powerful glyphs that rarely see play, like breastplates. Especially since minor glyphs will be priced at 400 gold, which is cheaper than they currently are. So here are all the current items that I think should be 800 gold major glyphs. Pribwin, Deathbringer, Bancross Talon, Magi's Cloak, and Relic Dagger, which leaves these as the current minor 400 gold glyphs. Breastplate, Heart Ward, Jotun's Wrath, Rod of Tahuti, the Executioner, and Runeforged Hammer. That covers the whole roster of 11 glyph items currently in the game, but I think with a rework of the system into major and minor glyphs, the competition goes down in general, and so some new glyphs should be added to each category. I made a video around the time they launched glyphs that showcased 5 items, each with 2 glyphs that I think should be added. Since that video, 2 of the items I selected for glyphs have been control or deleted from the game, Stonecutting Sword and Shifter Shield, and Relic Dagger already has glyphs now, so I have created 2 glyphs for 3 more items to replace those. So here's a brief overview of my 10 new glyphs that should be added alongside this rework to the core system. Firstly, Kin Size gets major glyph status in the form of Headsman Size and Swift Size. Headsman Size changes the percent max health damage into missing health damage, but massively boosts the effect. This makes the item really strong at soft executing low health targets, but a lot weaker on full health enemies. Missing health damage goes even with max health damage when the target is at 50% health, so there's a trade-off to be made if you're going Headsman Size. Swift Size, on the other hand, is more consistent, as it simply increases your attack speed cap to 3.0 instead of 2.5. This synergizes really well with Kin's general effect and with other items you might want in a Kin's build like Executioner. These 2 glyphs are really strong for sure and might need nerfing to be actually implemented into the game, but they would be a major glyph, so 800 gold, and competing with other strong majors like Deathbringer. Moving on though, next up we have a minor glyph item in Spear of the Magus. For the first glyph, I thought a return of the original Spear of the Magus passive would be cool. Penetrating Spear of the Magus adds 5 flat shred on ability hits, stacking up to 5 times. Simple, but I really loved old Spear of the Magus passive back in the day, and having it return as a glyph similar to Witchblade Dagger we got recently would be really cool. And for the other spear glyph, I went with Sapping Spear of the Magus, which provides 15% lifesteal against the target marked by the item's passive. This would work in the same way as Fail Not, where they add debuffs so everyone lifesteals off of them. It could be nice for tick damage abilities as well, since the first tick procs the effect and every future tick of that ability will lifesteal, or just for general utility so your hunter can heal heal off the target and stuff like that. As mentioned, Spear of the Magus will be a minor glyph option at 400 gold, which leaves your major glyph option open for something like Bancrofts for synergy or other major glyph options. Okay, next up, Glad Shield. Yeah, you know I had to include glyphs for one of my favorite items of all time, but I think it makes sense for these to be major glyphs, as the item is already really strong. This way it competes with Pridwin and other strong glyphs rather than competing with the likes of Breastplate and Heartward. So first up we have Virulent Gladiator Shield, which is a very simple one. Enemies hit by your damaging abilities have their healing and shielding reduced by 40% for 5 seconds with an internal cooldown of 10. Yeah, I know this isn't anything super major and is basically Deathbringer's glyph but for ability tanks, but I feel like giving Glad Shield glyphs too crazy could be kind of problematic. So you remember that thing I just said about Glad Shield being problematic? Well, we're throwing that out of the window because my second major glyph for Glad Shield is Leeching Gladiator Shield, which inherits the old passive effect this item used to have at tier 2, albeit at lower effectiveness. On ability hits, you heal 1.5% max health and mana once per target per ability. This was 2.5% on the original item. Now, before you go writing your hate comments about how I'm a filthy Arthur that just wants him to be OP again, I do think this glyph will be very different to the original Glad Shield. Not only is the effect less strong, it also costs a total of 3150 gold when you factor in the major glyph cost of 800 gold, in comparison to the original Gladiator Shield which cost only 1700, almost half that. This means the glyph won't come online super early in the laning phase anymore and would likely be more for mid to late game surviving fights rather than sustaining in lane. I think through the wrapper of a major glyph, this effect could be balanced in modern Smite and I'd love to see it return. For my penultimate glyph item, I have another minor glyph option for a staple item in support, Gauntlet of Thieves. I was a little cautious about giving this item strong glyphs as it could make it even more of an auto build on supports, but to be honest, it already is an auto build and the glyphs will only be minor, not major, so it shouldn't break the item. First up, Temporal Gauntlet of Thieves, which is a very simple one. When the item evolves, it also provides 10% CDR to allies in the aura range. For clarity purposes, CDR does not apply retroactively, so you won't get faster cooldowns just for standing near your support. You will simply get 10% off that cooldown if you are in the aura when you cast the ability. And the other glyph for Thieves I have for you is Fortified Gauntlet of Thieves, which increases the passive protection aura to 3 stacks of 10 protections instead, but each time an ally god takes damage, they lose one of those stacks. Stacks refill when you're out of combat and in the aura of effect. So this one is a bit weird, but the general idea is that it provides a much stronger benefit initially, but once the ally takes 3 hits, the item is no longer providing any procs at all. It helps a lot with burst damage, but is weaker against sustained damage output and long fights. And of course, these Thieves glyphs will be minor and cost 400 gold, competing with the likes of Breastplate and Heartward. But finally, my last glyphs for the video are aimed at junglers, but could cross classes, as they are for Titan's Bane. It always felt like Executioner having glyphs on the physical auto attack side, but Titan's Bane didn't, felt a little bit weird. And for these ones, I went a little crazy. Firstly, Giant's Bane enhances the 20% penetration on your first ability hit to instead just deal true damage with your first ability hit. Oh boy, now I've not only pissed off the DPS mains by bringing back old Glad Shield, but I've also pissed off the tank mains by adding more true damage. Please drop a like on this video if you're enjoying it to offset this. Nah, but on a serious note, this might be too broken, but it's probably not quite as broken as it sounds. With base Titan's Bane, you're already at 60% pen on your first ability, assuming you're already capped on it, and going to true damage from 60% pen isn't as big a jump as you'd think. Yes, it's still very strong, but only for one ability, and needless to say, this will be a major glyph at 800 gold and competing with the likes of Deathbringer and my new kin size glyphs. The second glyph for Titan, Shattering Titan's Bane, goes a completely different route, as the passive now applies 20% protection reduction on the target for 3 seconds instead of just pen. This is notably stronger because not only does it boost your other physical teammates' damage to that target, but also boosts any follow-up from you within 3 seconds rather than just your first ability. As crazy as it sounds, this might even be better than the true damage option. And yeah, as I mentioned, Titans will be a major glyph at 800 gold, which means that after this rework of the system and my 5 new glyph items, the offering would look something like this. For the 800 gold major glyphs, we have Pridwin, Deathbringer, Bancroft's Talon, Magi's Cloak, Relic Dagger, Kin Size, Titan's Bane, and Gladiator Shield, which leaves these as the minor 400 gold glyphs: Breastplate of Valor, Heartward Amulet, Jotun's Wrath, Rod of Tahuti, Executioner, Runeforged Hammer, Gauntlet of Thieves, and Spear of the Magus. That's 8 items or 16 total glyph options for each category, which should help a lot in build diversity and player selection. It also allows for some interesting build paths that weren't possible before by combining a major and minor glyph that might have some nice synergy where the current system you can only build one. A couple cool ones I've come up with on the spot are Bancroft's Talon, or maybe even Nimble Bancrofts with Sapping Spear of the Magus to boost your overall lifesteal, Heartward ward being moved to a minor glyph option opens back up the option for solo laners to have it without foregoing Pribwin, which could be really nice for solo builds. Executioner is a similar case, as it will be a minor glyph now and so can be built with either Deathbringer or my new kin size glyphs, but of course not both as they are major. I'm sure there are tons more cool options I haven't thought about yet, so leave your own suggestions down below for some cool major and minor glyph combinations. I'll be reading them all when the video goes live. But yeah, that's pretty much my idea for reworking the glyph system to promote more build diversity and better balance in existing glyphs. Of course, this is just a concept, and perhaps some glyphs I made minor should be major and vice versa, or the pricing could be changed to 500 and 700 rather than 400 and 800 and stuff like that. But I thought I'd bring you guys this video because it's a topic I find genuinely interesting, and I hope there are some plans to rework glyphs going on in the background at high res. Since we didn't get any new glyphs in the Season of Celebration, perhaps they're waiting for Year 11 launch to add some new glyphs and perhaps rework the system in some way. We shall see. Catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.